parents who might be asking, but you haven't communicated it to them. So I'd ask you to please respect them to keep them informed about what's going on. We also have a student assistant that's here for the summer, called a FASA, a first-year academic student assistant. These are students, sophomores, juniors, and seniors who are doing well academically, who are integrated in campus life, and are smart, good role models to hang around. You know what my mother said in 3rd grade, I see it mean more and more as I get older. Hang around good people and pay attention to their patterns. Right? This is what Ignatius is talking about. Right? See what animates them. Wow, she's really impressive. She's really on top of her studies. She's also personable and she's funny. Hang around her. Guess what? Your parents will like that too. Right? Hang around these people because in many ways they reflect characteristics that you want to emulate in many ways too. Okay? There's a lot of things to help you along the way. Just by a show of hands, not embarrassment, show of hands, how many of you have already connected with your SAC and/or FASA? Raise your hands and look around. Okay. I hope by tonight there'll be more hands raised there. Okay. I'm sure parents are like, oh yes, there will be. At this point, how many of you have dabbled on our Blackboard course this summer to get a sense of the core, registration, things like that? Raise your hands. Take a look around. Okay. So I hope tonight you'll be looking a little more about that. At this point, any questions that you'd like to articulate for me to help you with? Yes?
What is the difference between the academic advisor
And the what?
athlete?
Sure. So we have very many types of academic advising here. Right? Strictly speaking, I'm your first primary as your academic dean. Right? Your professors also give advisement, but you're also assigned a core advisor. So you have one called the SPAC I mentioned during the summer, but then at the end of August, throughout your first year and a half through the core curriculum, you have a core advisor. So that's a faculty member or administrator who will work with you and a small group of no more than 18 students. They also have a student assistant that works with you. If you are a student athlete, in addition to that, there's another layer called academic advising for student athletes. So you probably have already heard from Mr. Taylor, Mr. Sanders, Stephanie, and the rest, correct? Yeah. Yes, sir.
Talk about the core curriculum. I think that's fairly fundamental across college coaching. Is the difference here that there's a inclusion of core Jesuit principles in those core classes, or are there separate classes in addition to traditional?
Sure, good question, sir. In other words, in terms of distinguishing the core, is it simply courses taught, or in addition to that, are there certain Jesuit educational principles supplementing that? The answer is actually both. So I teach a philosophy course, but also involves Ignatian critical thinking throughout it. However, we also have separate courses simply on Jesuit history, education, and such too. But these types of modes of Socratic inquiry and other analytical tools, they are diffused within the core itself. So the idea is that even in your math class, your sociology course, your Spanish lit course, economics, you will also have principles of Jesuit education stemming through them too. Other questions from the East Wing over here? Yes?
Do you take 2 eloquential productive courses in a semester? Or?
This is someone who's been on Blackboard recently. Thank you. Okay. So, good question, right? The Eloquentia Perfecta, okay? Fancy Latin we have here too, called the EP courses, Perfected Eloquence. So one of our intentions of good Jesuit education is also to make sure you have a reading, writing intensive experience where you are presenting in front of your peers and your professor. So there's public speaking elements in that. It's a good example, sir, of how that's infused in your course. So EP courses are taken in a variety of options. You might select one in philosophy, or theology, history, fine arts. You are to take one and only one EP course, either in the fall semester or the spring. We don't have students doing multiple EPs simply because we want to make sure the class size is reduced so that we can have that interaction. So if you select an EP 1 course for the fall semester, then you won't take one in the spring. But if you don't select one in the fall and you take it in the spring, that's fine. Half of the class takes it in the fall, the other half in the spring. An example of an EP course. Okay, I'll give you one. So this is philosophy of human nature. So it counts as the core curriculum requirement in philosophy. But in addition to that, it's reading, writing intensive. And the class size is reduced from 30 to 19 students. So that student should expect more assignments, more interaction with me and one another, and a lot of things that are done in and out of class that help them hone those skills of public speaking, critical argumentation, but also we have a lot of fun community types of events that are there too. I take them on a Greek dinner after we do the Greek theorists, but then we also, I want to spoil it in case some of you are going to take this course. Okay. But we find ways in which try to get those principles flushed out through the course. Another example is in art history. So this is an opportunity where perhaps the professor is having you work on a project that you will all present at a conference. Maybe she already knows the artist because they are colleagues and friends who comes to the class and you meet them in a more intimate lunch or something like that too. So these are all great opportunities of EP type of style. Other questions? Yes, sir. So the question is, may you take a course of language at Lincoln Center? It's possible if, in fact, that language is not offered here, your first year, and there are a few handful of rare cases where that's the case. But it's really our intention for you to do your core courses here, especially your first year, for a variety of reasons, one of which includes just getting used to our campus, our curriculum, our faculty and such. But it is possible to perhaps start taking courses effective sophomore year at Lincoln Center. We have students that at times might take a course or two or even develop a minor that they wind up doing that's there. Other questions? I'll just end with this sort of typical schedule. A lot of times people wonder, what does that really lay out to be? Okay. So if you're science, pre-health, quite often you're taking 4 courses in the fall semester. 1 or 2 sciences, and it's your election. Some students want to start full throttle, bio and chem in 2 cores. Others want to have a more gentle introduction to the field. Maybe they're not certain as of right now what they want to do, which is fine. So they do a kind of, in between. They take 1 science and then 4 other cores. So if you're doing 2 sciences together, you'll take a series of 4 courses in total. A course is defined as 3 or more credits. But interestingly, chemistry itself has 3 components, but it's still considered in 1 course. If you're not doing science or STEM, students would typically take 5 courses their fall semester and 5 their spring semester. And they're usually anywhere between 3 and 4 credits. The exception being an introductory language in the modern field, which would be a 5-credit intro, like if you're taking 1001 Intro Spanish or French or Italian. Another thing to keep in mind too is just good advice. So perhaps unlike in high school, and I realize there's a whole different academic landscape for everyone last year, including you as graduating seniors in high school, but recognize that you're in classes typically 15 to 20 hours a week. So there's an awful lot of time in between there, correct? And I give you some advice that the freshman dean gave me years ago. And he told us, and it makes so much sense. He says, if your weekend is longer than your week, you need to rethink things. And it's so true, right? So you're not studying 24/7, that's not healthy either, okay? But recognize as well, it's not high school. So whereas in high school you may have had that course 4, 5, or 6 times in a cycle or in a week, you might have this course twice or 3 times. So it's not always an exact science, but my advice is use this as a general rubric. For every hour of class instruction you have, you should expect 3 or 4 hours in preparation and work on that too. So if you do the math, that equals the work week. Ask your parents. They'll probably work even more than that. So make sure you're utilizing your time, okay? What you fill your mind and body with matters. So recognize that if you're struggling in a course and you're honest with yourself, no judgment, and say, well, I really don't do much outside of class in this course. Perhaps that's the first step. We need to start working a little more there as well. But to ask questions, to craft ideas, to ask strategies, get involved in your education in many ways. That being the case, you have a lot more time to explore, and in all seriousness, our intention is to give you less busy work. So it's not my intention to just constantly slam my students with assignments to keep them off the streets. That's not the point of this, right? But rather to give them assignments that are pointed, that have a purpose, that they see the value and the evolution of our ideas as we're moving along. There's a reason why the assignment in the 2nd of September is this, and it's different than the 13th assignment in November, so to speak, okay? But to have opportunities to really explore, to spend time, not to just crank out the assignment and move on. We're not trying to just get through a list of duties, but rather to explore in many ways. And then on the mathematical level, realize if you're having fewer assignments, obviously they'll be worth a lot more in terms of the grade distribution, so you want to make sure you're prepared and vigilant about that as well. We have time for one last question. As a good Jesuit teacher of mine told me, if you ever end early, it's okay. So thank you very much. I appreciate your time. I'll turn it over to Ken.
Thank you, Dean Carmack, so much. So at this time, we still have about 15 minutes, but what will be next is the pre-professional presentations. These sessions include a pre-law, a pre-health, and a 5-year integrated education track information session. If you are not interested in attending any of those, you are free to remain here at Eddie's to take a half-hour break and enjoy some lawn games and activities. If you want to go to the pre-law session, I'm gonna wait a little bit because you guys have about 15 minutes to relax. So at this point, if you need to go get water from inside, go to the bathroom, I would recommend doing that. But the pre-law session is going to be in the Keating 3rd auditorium. There will be orientation leaders to lead you there. The 5-year education track, you guys are gonna follow me into Freeman. And then the last one is the pre-health session, which will be in Keating 1st auditorium. So at this point, if you need to go anywhere, just make sure you're back in about 15 minutes so that we can steer you to the right directions. Actually, I think if you want, we have about 15 minutes. We're early, so if you guys want to just stay here for a little bit, hang out, get water.